Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission's regular meeting for November 25th, 2024. This time we will move to roll call. Commissioner Rasmussen.
Commissioner Bott,
Here.
Commissioner Britton,
Here.
Commissioner Fisher,
Here.
Chair Frazier,
Here.
Commissioner Knable,
Here.
Commissioner Rasmussen, here, Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Britton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Stevens. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item 4 tonight is open forum. This is an opportunity for anyone who's here in the audience tonight to speak on something that is not on tonight's agenda. So the agenda items we have tonight are the Park High School addition and the NorthPoint development. If there's something you want to speak to the commission on that is not one of those two things, right now is your opportunity to do so. So if you'd like to step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no takers, we will close open forum. Item 5 is Chair's explanation of the hearing process. The Planning Commission is a volunteer advisory group to the City Council. One of the Commission's functions is to hold public hearings and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. The purpose of these public hearings is to provide an opportunity for each applicant and citizens to present information, ask questions, and express opinions. Since these proceedings are televised and recorded for the public record, anyone wishing to speak must step up to the podium and give their name and address before addressing the Commission. Staff reports are prepared and provided to the applicant and Planning Commission in advance of the meeting. The first step in the hearing will be for staff to present a summary of the report. The applicant will then have the opportunity to briefly explain the proposal and provide additional information or comment. Anyone wanting to speak in favor or against the proposal will then be heard. Upon completion of the testimony, the hearing will be closed to public comment. The Planning Commission will then discuss and act on the matter. 2 complete agenda packets are available for viewing on the back table. Please do not remove those items. The City Council will act on these items at their meeting on Wednesday, December 4th, 2024, which starts at 7 p.m. We'll move into item 6. 6A tonight is the Park High School addition, SP 2024-023, with Emily presenting.
Cable Commission was ahead of me this evening. Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, as noted, our first item this evening is Park High School. As most of you might be aware, they did have a successful, or I should say the school district had a successful referendum in 2023. Therefore, throughout the district, obviously they're proposing multiple different projects, one of those being at Park High School. For those of you who know, this school has been around for quite some time, and it is in need of some updates, so we'll get into the details of that further on in the presentation. The site is zoned R3, which does allow for educational facilities to be located there with a CUP, which was way before all of our times. So this site plan review is going to look a little different. I'm going to just say that in advance. Typically, we see the buildings, right? And we're working through a site as a whole. Because of the small size of the addition, for lack of a better way to put it, I'm going to talk through the addition, but you're not going to hear me talk about a lot of that laundry list of ordinances that I typically talk through, landscaping, those things, because the impact to this site was quite minimal. And we spent a large portion of our time focusing on the traffic and the access that was proposed by the school district. However, so the proposed addition, the largest addition, is the cafeteria at the rear of the building. I didn't know this, but the cafeteria that exists is original to the building. Been around since, I would say, the 60s. The applicant will correct me on that. But so expanding the cafeteria to support the students and obviously freshen that up is very important. The second addition will be the CTE, Career and Technical Education area. This is pretty cool. They're creating some additional space for those kids to have a little bit more room to, they do construction projects and different kind of technical projects, so they'll have a lot more room in there to do those with this addition. The one item that I will focus on, just because it is the exterior, is the architectural materials. I would say above and beyond for this particular addition, which will align with the materials on the existing building, so using a large portion of brick and glazing. Interestingly enough, certain additions as a part of a school project are now required per a building code to meet certain, I'm going to say the term wind load, but that's not it, but it ultimately needs to be able to protect students in the event of a tornado. And I will say the school district focused really hard on making sure that they could still create an open space while still creating that protection. So you'll see they are still proposing a lot of glazing as a part of this project, but it's super special glazing that does provide that protection. I think it's a 2x4 going at 250 miles an hour. They're nodding at me. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So anyhow, so they really tried to incorporate all of that into their project. Internal improvements, ultimately, I just thought it was awfully helpful for you to know some of these internal improvements, not a part of the application, but the secure entry as you walk in to the school now. They're doing some adjustments to bring the offices, have more space and all in one area, more secure. This is this image on the top corner here, and then on the bottom corner, they're bringing all of those student services together as well in one area. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is a little bit twofold, and we're going to focus on the site improvements as a whole. So I imagine for anyone who drives down 80th Street, either in the morning at drop-off or in the evening at pickup, they recognize the challenges there. So the school district and their team really focused on making sure that they could get as much stacking on the site as they possibly could as a part of the redesign. So what you'll see is an extra access that is proposed off of 80th Street with a right turn lane. That's number one of the bigger site improvements that you'll see. Number two, as you can see, drop-off for park is now proposed on the back side of the building as opposed to the front side. This really helps to split all of the different, I'm going to call them vehicles, for lack of a better way to put it, that are coming or leaving all at one time. So they've split. Bus traffic will still come to the front. Staff and visitor parking will be in the front. Student parking will remain in the same location. However, they'll be shifting that student drop-off for park to the rear of the building. Those folks will drop off, continue on, and exit onto Ideal Avenue. This helps to keep, for lack of a better way to put it, all of that traffic going one direction, and then that bus traffic and that student traffic kind of going another. In addition, this also provides, so I'm going to draw here, you've got two accesses off of 80th, and for Crestview, that drive-through motion will still look the same, but again, allows for some additional stacking on that site instead of falling out onto 80th Street. The last note that I wanted to make, which is great, we've gotten this question a couple of times. Obviously, if any of you have attended an event at the ice arena, sometimes parking can be challenging. So they are proposing additional 50 parking spaces in the back of the building. Not only is that great for park, but that's also great for the ice arena, right? Those event times typically don't align, so those spaces will be available. The school district is planning construction to start this June. It will be phased, so they'll do a couple phases at a time, completing that construction over 2 years in the summer of 2027. And I'm just going to make a note, recognizing full well that you aren't acting on this, the easements this evening as the Planning Commission, but we are working with the school district as a part of this larger project to be sure that we can acquire additional easements that are needed, where we've already got existing utilities or some small utilities and things like that, to be sure that we have access as a city for the maintenance of those. So we're coordinating those efforts. With that, I have the recommendation before you for the site plan. The school district and their team are here this evening if you have specific questions for them. Otherwise, staff is also available to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Brennan?
Could you go back to the site improvement plan, please? So in area 8, where the bus route is through, that appears different than what I've experienced in the past, where that third lane on the bottom is actually parking spaces or used to be parking spaces. Are those all those parking spaces now gone? Or will they still in non-school hours be used as parking?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Britton, they will not be used.
Maybe we can save that, we'll save that question because it sounds like maybe the applicant has a
That is
better.
just fine. If there's more for the applicant, we'll bank them.
Okay, all right. Any
Yeah.
other yeah, go ahead.
So there was also a note in here about 40% tree mitigation. And since this is following rules or whatever else, there was no tree mitigation necessary. My question is that when this property was originally developed, I'm sure if there were trees on it, there might have been tree mitigation. Now, this isn't being redeveloped, but it is being changed. At what point it almost sounds like every time we come and do something new, you get a 40% where you don't have to mitigate. So the next time we do it, we get another 40%. I'm not saying that that's how it works. I'm looking for some clarification on how that works, such that it isn't 40, 40, 40, 40, 40, and then you end up with no trees. Not that that would actually happen, but how does that work?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Britton, so we do require a tree inventory, which the school district did do, and a landscaping plan on top of that. So yes, as a part of each project, we would calculate using that code standard or percentage as a part of each project. However, on top of that, you're constantly requiring additional landscaping to be planted as well, right? So additional trees. So as those trees are planted, that percentage is going to come up. Does that make,
So we'll end up with more trees than we had before.
ultimately,
Okay,
yes.
fair enough. Thank you.
Commissioner Knable?
So between visitor parking and the buses, I know as a parent trying to drop kids off there many times, you would go through that visitor area to drop your kid off. So is that still going to be a drop-off area?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Knable? No. The intent is to force that traffic around the backside of the building instead of having that conflicting traffic. I assure you, the school district recognizes it will be a learning curve.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Rasmussen?
I'm curious about, with all the drop-off traffic and then leaving on Ideal, for those like wanting to make a left turn, for instance, I don't believe that's a traffic light there. Is there any concerns with traffic backing up on Ideal or safety at that intersection?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rasmussen, I'm going to defer that to our wonderful Assistant City Engineer if we're ready.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rasmussen. The drop-off is going to change a little bit. So right now, the students are able to exit out of that driveway onto Ideal. When this is complete, the students will be exiting out the south side of that parking lot, and only the parents that are dropping off will be exiting out onto Ideal. So the lesser amount of students coming out of the, because there's going to be a gate in there. So there'll be less students coming out onto Ideal, and then the parents will be the ones that are coming out after that drop off, and the students will be coming out on the south side.
I did notice that gate in there. All right, so that makes sense.
Okay.
Commissioner Fisher?
So I had a question about the new drop-off that's down by Crestview, or the new, driveway. It looks like it's kind of squeaked between two stormwater collection basins. Are there retaining walls or something that's going to go in there to help kind of protect that roadway for erosion, I guess? Maybe
There's
that's
no
something
retaining
that-
walls. The grades do work out so
The grades
that
are okay?
the roadway will be elevated enough to be protected
There's,
on its
yeah,
own.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right, thank you very much. This time, if the applicant has anything additionally like that, I know we have the one question about the parking spots in the front. If you could state your name and address for us, please.
Sure. My name's Kevin Bowl. I work at BKBM Engineers as a civil engineer. My address is 11623 Fergus Street Northeast in Blaine, Minnesota. So, to answer your questions, yeah, it's not shown on this diagram, but we do anticipate putting the green striped stalls back in. Again, intending that that's used for after hours, not used during the school day, because we do want that to function as a drive-through area. So, but would be available still for after hours activities. So.
Okay, thank you. You're good.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to hear that they're still gonna be there, because we lost parking, and it almost comes out to be a wash. I think you guys have done a great job of making this safer and better, all in all. It's unfortunate that we couldn't have more parking for the ice arena, because you lose a bunch of spots in order to drive through that back area, and then you do gain some back on that back slope. So there might be a few extra spots in there, but it just would have been nice to have seen, even on the backside of the ice arena, if there could have been more parking. But I understand you got other fields and stuff that you got to fit in there.
Yeah, and I will say, we did have an option at one point. There's currently kind of a maintenance building back there where they store different soils and whatnot. We did actually look at one point moving that building and putting additional parking there. Unfortunately, it wasn't necessarily part of the referendum, and then, value engineering came through. We're coming in over budget, so that was one of the things that kind of unfortunately had to get scrapped, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Rasmussen?
Excuse me, I know where this new drive's coming in by the tennis courts, kind of splits a detention pond now, and it looks like you've split them up, assuming we've got adequate detention and water holding capabilities there. I feel like that new drive's kind of right in the middle of the detention, where the detention sits now.
Yeah, for the most part, the area 9 on the west side of the drive, that's kind of where the existing pond is. Because of the added impervious on the site, or the hard surfaces on the site, we did have to add the additional area kind of to the east side. So, the one on the west is approximately what's there now, and the addition was really the stuff on the west. Going back to the other question that was had on that, the grade will, from the back of curb area, there's a slightly flat spot, we'll say, that's maybe about 5 to 8 feet wide, and then from there it does slope down then at a 3-to-1 slope, which is considered typically mowable. So it's not like there's like a sheer drop off right on either side of the curb. It's leveled out a little bit there. So.
Is that a new detention back by the stadium as well? That other 9, is that existing? Or no?
Correct. So as part of the watershed requirements, any new and redeveloped impervious surfaces have to be treated for the site. We're only adding, I think it's, and I don't know offhand, but I believe it's 0.3 acres of hard surface, but we're redeveloping a significant portion of the site. So the one behind the stadium is intended to treat kind of the redeveloped impervious surfaces on the north side of the site. So.
Any further questions? Commissioner Fisher?
So continuing on with that, there's a lot of foot traffic obviously back there for the stadium and things. Is there some sort of barrier or something going up kind of around where that drainage spot is? So when it does hold water, that people aren't, not that people are going to walk right into it, but I just feel like with the stadium right there, there's lots of foot traffic in the area.
Sure. So we anticipate a lot of the foot traffic will actually come off of the, from the new entrance by the cafeteria, kind of where that 18 is shown. And then people will either head left and head up to the practice fields, which are, area 15, or over to the baseball fields from there. Or if you're going into the stadium, you would enter through the main entrance to the stadium, which is a little bit just kind of north of the northeast corner of the building. So there's actually a fence behind the grandstand and no gates or anything through there, so we don't anticipate many people would use that. If they did, likely they would just use the sidewalk to wrap around.
Okay, thank you.
Another item to maybe point out too is after it rains, you'll see water in these ponds, but they're designed to drain dry within 48 hours, so.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open public hearing on the application. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application can step to the podium. All right, seeing none, we will close public hearing on the application. Any further discussion by commission?
Overall, I think it's a great idea. I drive by quite often and see traffic backing up at both these schools, so I'm hoping this really helps.
Yeah, I agree. I live in the area, and I know, especially at Crestview, it backs up, especially the people going in and then people going out. And then when you get to Hinton there, the back up there. So hopefully this will help that traffic merge better onto 80th, so, especially in the mornings. Anyone else? Otherwise, I'd look for a motion.
Motion to approve, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Britton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Knable. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is 6B, NorthPoint, cases ZA 2024-022 and CUP 2024-022, with Emily presenting again.
All right, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Next item before you, again, a couple of different applications as a part of this. This slide has a lot going on in it, but I promise you it will come together. I needed it to tell my story. So in 2021, if you recall, I can't believe it's been that long ago, but NorthPoint Development did come to us with a proposal for a master site plan. So the area is what you'll see in the upper left-hand corner. So that area was the acreage, about 252 acres total, that was encompassed within that master plan that was approved in 2021. Down below, you can see the outline or the layout of the buildings that they did propose, 3.4 million total square feet for the distribution center within that Cottage Grove Logistics Park. So in 2022, Phase 1 was approved. They came back before you with a site plan for those buildings, and as you can see, since that time, both of those buildings have been constructed. In addition, all of the public improvements that were required as a part of that project have also been installed and completed. 105th Street, the roundabout, and then we work through the South District project for what internally we always call the X, right? But a 100th Street realignment and a Hadley realignment. So all of that work has been done over the last handful of years to where we are today. Since that time, NorthPoint, or Cottage Grove Logistics Park, has purchased 2 additional properties, as you can see here. As they plan for the future of the site, they want to ensure that those additional properties that they do now own are incorporated into that master plan. In order to do that, they are asking to align those zonings of those parcels with the zoning that we rezoned the 252 acres as a part of the master plan in 2021. So proposing to rezone to that I-1 general industrial, which does align with our 2040 land use comprehensive plan. In addition to that, we would amend the PUD that was approved as a part of that project to include its 38.85 acres, if you want to get specific, those 2 parcels to join into that PUD as well, to encompass the entirety of the property. As I mentioned, additional request before you this evening is to amend that master site plan, again, to incorporate that 38.85 acres into that site plan as a whole, now that they have both of those properties under their ownership. And the final application before you this evening is a conditional use permit. Now, I know what you're thinking, it looks a little funny, right, because you don't have a site plan or a project before you. However, the applicant is thinking ahead. And as they try to market the property, again, only 2 buildings have been constructed over the last handful of years. They want to just see if they can't provide an opportunity to be ready, for lack of a better way to put it. So a conditional use permit for a data center on the site would allow them to do just that, have their options open. It's important to note that this does align with our business park AUAR. As you recall, when we completed that AUAR, which is a planning tool that we use to evaluate the environmental impacts of potential projects, right? We evaluated 2 different scenarios. One was a distribution center, the other was a telecommunications center is what we called it. And so we know that either of those uses would align with that AUAR. And that AUAR is something that we use to be as ready for development as we can be. If a project were to come forward, it would have to come back before you, right? So you'll see a site plan for whatever that project might look like and for that use. And as I mentioned, the marketability is certainly beneficial to the property owner as they continue to try to find that development in our business park. So with that, it is 3 separate recommendations this evening. The applicant is here to answer specific questions, but staff is of course available as well.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff?
I have a question.
Commissioner Knable?
So on the AUAR, it was first done in when? I don't remember when the first one was done. Was it?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Knable, 2017, that was completed.
Then we updated in 2021. And then were there any major changes that came out of either of those for that area?
There was not. Nope, stayed consistent.
Commissioner Rasmussen?
So the proposed CUP, if I'm understanding correctly, pretty much allows for distribution and/or data center instead of just, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rasmussen, that's correct. The distribution is permitted. The data center requires that CUP, which is the request. Yep.
I have a question.
Commissioner Fisher?
Can you explain to me exactly what a data center is? I feel like there wasn't a whole, I don't know, maybe I'm just missing something, but I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of like information on what that exactly is that we're approving a permit for.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fisher. So again, my non-technical version of what a data center is, they are typically larger buildings, right, that house equipment to store data. Minimal traffic
Right.
is my understanding. Again, the large buildings, but a reduced level of traffic, in my understanding and my experience.
Okay.
Commissioner Britton?
You might think of it as a server farm,
Yeah.
tons and tons of computers.
Kinda what I
So
thought,
information
but-
storage in electronic format of some kind, if that's helpful at all.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fisher, I'll add, it's important for me to note from a staff perspective, the use is indoors, right?
Right.
When we think about uses, we certainly always focus on the impact to adjacent properties. We recognize that a large portion of this is indoors.
Right. I was just curious if I was missing something bigger because needing a conditional use permit for something that seems pretty benign seems like excessive to me to need a CUP for it. So I just was wondering if I was missing something
Sure.
for that, because if it's all interior and, it's very quiet and there's no traffic, like, it just doesn't make sense why, like, a whole separate permit would need to be applied for, even when it's not even, like, there yet. So, or it's not even planned to be there at this point, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was confused by that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fisher, planning practice, when we have uses that can potentially expand outside of the walls or create an impact. Now, in this instance, you're correct, a lot of the use is internal. However, sometimes they're kind of a higher utility user, which could potentially impact some of the improvements that might need to be made. Therefore, we want to make sure that we've got that conditional use permit to allow for some additional standards to be set.
Commissioner Rasmussen?
I'm just trying to recall a few of the other data centers that recently went up in other communities, and some of the concerns residents had were mainly just around like noise, which I can't imagine there's a lot, but some sort of, low tone humming noise. I'm assuming in this area, we've got noise restrictions and ordinances that kind of govern that type of thing. Is that true?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rasmussen, my answer is twofold. One, we do have a specific condition. I forgot to mention, we will require the conditions of the master site plan in 2020, if you recall. It was a couple of pages worth, still pertain to this use. And one of those is to ensure that any noise mitigation that's required is to be mitigated. And yes, we do have ordinance standards that measure that throughout.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, thank you. This time, if the applicant would like to step to the podium, add anything additional?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for your entertaining this tonight, this recommendation this evening. My name is Mark Mullitzer. I'm Regional Vice President with NorthPoint Development, 1495 Heritage Valley Drive, High Ridge, Missouri, 63049. Emily does a remarkable job on the report. So here, more or less, just to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Rasmussen?
You've got quite a bit of land out there approved. Have you had a lot of interest in different developments?
So the reason we're here this evening requesting this conditional use permit is because it is our desire to put this park into production. We do have the Building 1 fully leased to Lumbermans and to Van Meter. Building 2, however, is fully vacant. We are a speculative developer, so until that building is leased, we will not go forward again. We have responded to a lot of build-to-suit opportunities for specific users, but we have not signed any leases. So this is just another way to put the park into production.
Wish you luck.
Thank you.
I have a question. So hearing that, it sounds like the data center would help drive more demand for the site for you guys.
Absolutely.
And so if you do build one, is there, on the map, where is it gonna go? I feel like we're approving something that is up in the clouds. Like, I don't understand where it's gonna go. I don't know, where the access points are. I don't know. I feel like there's just a ton of missing pieces for it right now.
Very good question. And what we're asking for action this evening is really in large to give the developer or the data center user predictability. So it's really twofold. Would the use be permitted on the site is what they're looking for, and they're large, heavy power users. So they would be looking for a load study be returned from Xcel Energy, which is expected to be any day. But as Emily mentioned, we would be back in front of you with a specific site plan. We are entertaining actually a few offers. We've responded to a few RFPs for a potential data center user. However, we have not executed any agreements with any of them to date, because again, they'll need the predictability on whether it's allowable and if there's power available. But with that, and hopefully with your approval this evening and the fact that there's power here, we will then hopefully execute an agreement and be back in front of you with a specific site plan, which we can speak to.
Okay. Any other questions? So I guess I was gonna have questions similar to Commissioner Fisher. Basically, this is a ability to advertise the space as, hey, we've already got approvals for this kind of use on the site. Come on in, use it. I know you've said the 2 buildings are up, one is fully leased, the other one is vacant. I know we can't hold you to this. But presumably, if someone wanted to use a data center and said, hey, building 2 is already there, we can just go in there. That building's already built. We don't have to do a site plan on that. And so they'd be able to go in without it coming back in front of us. But it sounds like you're saying that's not really where you guys are thinking this would go. It'd have to be a new building. Fair?
Mr. Chair, that we would call that a win-win. We would absolutely entertain the data center user in Building 2.
Okay.
However, it's less efficient than I think what they would want. The construction is very much the same. It's precast concrete walls, very similar construction to what's out there. However, that is a very large clear height building. It's 40-foot clear for racking clearances, which is inefficient to cool. These data centers need to be cooled because of the heat. And then also, So it's less efficient. However, we would absolutely entertain a data center user in that space.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so may not be likely, but could be a possibility that a data center user goes into the pre-built building with the CUP already been granted.
That's fair.
All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open public hearing on the application. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application can step to the podium. Seeing none, we will close public hearing. Further discussion by the commission.
Me.
Commissioner Fisher.
Me. Emily, has there been something that you can give me an example of a CUP that we've approved before it's coming into existence in the past? I mean, is this a normal thing? I've been on this for 4 years and I can't remember doing this particular thing this particular way. And I understand just in my job that, you know, if you're building, like, you need to make sure you can build what you want to build in the land that you want to buy, right? So I understand the forward thinking, but I don't know, I'm really struggling with this one. So is there something you can help me, like, understand that we've maybe has set some precedent before that we've done this?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fisher, I cannot come up with an example off the top of my head. It is unique. However, two planning tools in our toolbox. One is a conditional use permit. The other is a site plan review process, okay? Site plan review process is the actual infrastructure that's proposed to be built on the site.
Right.
The conditional use permit is the use.
What goes in it,
And
right.
saying, okay, this is the activity that's going to happen on the site. How can we condition or regulate that, right? So two very different things. So when we think about a conditional use permit, we think about that use. And in this instance, yes, it's coming ahead of a site plan review. So we're saying that use is permitted. As Mark had indicated, that does help NorthPoint as a team market their site. They can say, hey, we've got the approval for the use. However, you will have to work through that site plan review process with what that looks like.
So one thing, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Mark. One thing Mark had said is something about the height of the building for racks and clearance and things. Are those heights that they're going to require for those buildings something that fits with what our requirements are to build in those zones?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fisher, what Mark was getting at was the existing building 2 was
Right.
actually built with a taller clearance for that racking and that
Oh, sure.
distribution use.
Okay,
A potential data center use would be a lesser.
would be less,
building
okay.
height.
Sorry, I heard that wrong, so, okay, thank you.
While we have Emily back up, anyone else have any other questions? Emily, I guess the only other question I have for you is then, based on the questions I had for Mark, that it's a possibility, not likely, but possibility that the use just goes right into the building that's already on site. Does staff have any concerns about the fact that then that will not come back in front of us and it'll just be a permitted use at that point that they can go in without any oversight?
Mr. Chair, technically, yes, from a staff perspective, no concerns, given the level of detail and the conditions that are tied to the potential use on the site to regulate any type of nuisance that might be an impact.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Bott?
So supposing if this building number 2 were to be used as a data center, right? If that requires any changes to the building or any additions to the building, would then come to our review?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bott, it depends how large those expansions might be. Typically, a site plan is only triggered with a certain percentage of an addition to a building, as opposed to perhaps an interior remodel. The interior wouldn't trigger that site plan review.
Thank you.
All right, any other further discussion from commission on the application? Seeing none, is there a motion?
We making a motion for all 3 together, or is it separate?
Well, I guess however someone would like to make the motion. If they want to motion all 3 at the same time, if they like 2 and not 1, or whoever wants to make the motion, I guess gets to control that.
I would motion to approve all 3
All
at
right.
the same time.
Subject to conditions in the staff report?
Exactly.
All right, is there a second for Commissioner Stevens' motion?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Britton. Any further discussion on the motion to approve all three? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Item 7 tonight is approval of the minutes. Unless there are any additions or corrections, I look for a motion to approve October 28, 2024 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Fisher. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second from Commissioner Bott. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. 8 is reports. 8A is recap of November 2024 City Council meeting minutes, or meetings with Emily.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I want to see if you could follow me on the other side of the room here. But I'm going all the way back to November 6th. One that I wanted to mention was the Gateway North Second Edition. That was the plat for Coles and Chase Bank, creating 2 separate parcels. So that was approved by the council on that November 6th date. And then jumping to the November 20th date, the council did approve the wholesome draft EIS to be published in the EQB Monitor. So now that it will be published on December 4th. It will be available for comment for 45 days. I certainly suggest giving it a once-over. A lot of time had been spent into the details of that particular request, so that will be out for comment through the first beginning of next year. And then the second item I wanted to note was the intermediate zone water treatment plant that was before you in October. The council did approve that at their November 20th meeting. I will look to Mr. Councilmember Kambata if he has anything to add or if you have questions for him.
Thank you, Emily. I don't have anything to add, but I will stand for questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Emily or Councilmember Kamada? Commissioner Esposito.
I'm sorry, Emily, I might not have been paying the most attention. Can you remind me again what that is out for review, what report you referenced?
Yeah, Commissioner Chair, or Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rasmussen. So Wholesome, formerly Aggregate Industries, has been working for quite some time on this EIS process for a potential mining project in the backwaters of the Mississippi River. As they run to the end of their aggregate supply, they're looking for opportunities and options to continue their efforts to provide that to the metro area. This is one of them. So that project, they've evaluated all of the potential impacts and how they might be able to mitigate those efforts.
I look forward to taking a look at it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you both. B was response to Planning Commission inquiries. We did get a response from Emily on 3 items. I think one was the appliance rebate program for the city. 2 was the whether the city provides financial assistance to people who have dead trees that go down on the property. Sounds like city does not have an opportunity for that, but looks for assistance from other agencies that may be out there. And then the last one was a question about how projects in the CIP were funded and what amount of those were taxpayer property tax funded versus other funds from other agencies. And so we received that. That was the only response we had from last meeting. So then C is Planning Commission requests. Any requests for this meeting?
I have a question.
Commissioner Bob?
Maybe this can be answered in this meeting only. So during a site plan review, what is considered? You just look at the site plan and ask questions around the plan, or can you also ask questions about, okay, how the building is going to come up, or what height the building is going to be, and what kind of glazing is going to be there?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bott, so a site plan review, we review quite a number of standards that are outlined in the zoning code. Parking, landscaping, tree mitigation, as Mr. Britton brought up. That's just to name a few, but we evaluate all of those standards as we review a site plan as a whole.
To give you an example, during the site plan review that we had today, you had mentioned about the glazing for the building. So if one were to have more questions on the glazing, can that be raised at this point, or would that be some other review at a later point in time?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bott, I mean, that could certainly be a question as we think about the glazing and the exterior materials that is, as we evaluate the architectural materials, which have minimum standards in the code. So that's why we reference glazing in brick and stone, which are considered to be Class 1 materials. And we require projects, commercial projects such as that in residential districts to have 65% Class 1 materials. So that's why we're looking at the types of materials. But if you have additional questions related to the materials during that time, is certainly
Thank you.
opportunity to ask.
All right, thank you. Any other requests for staff? Seeing none, item 9 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn from Commissioner Rasmussen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Fisher. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.